Modern life, with all its conveniences and advancements, can sometimes bring us intangible pressures. Amidst the hustle of work, family duties, and social responsibilities, many of us still feel a quiet pain and emptiness that seems impossible to fill. It might be a persistent worry, or a vague sense of unease. It could also be deep wounds within the soul that we don't know how to heal. On the journey to find peace, many have turned to various methods: psychological therapy, modern meditation, or traditional remedies. But the truth is, lasting healing does not come only from outside. It must arise from within each of us. Buddhism, with a history spanning over 2.500 years, points to a path both simple and profound: the path of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are not just the fundamental teachings of the Buddha, but also a roadmap guiding us to recognize suffering, understand its causes, and find liberation. In this script, we will explore each step on that inner healing journey. We will learn how to see clearly the sufferings in life, identify their deep roots, and most importantly, understand how to transform them to reach true peace, genuine joy that does not depend on external circumstances. This journey is neither easy nor complicated. It requires patience, courage, and above all, right understanding. As you persist along this path, you will gradually realize that healing the heart begins with acceptance and letting go. With awakening wisdom and compassion, let us begin this journey of healing from within through the teachings of the Buddha, teachings that have helped millions find peace amidst life's storms. Life is a journey filled with diverse experiences, but it inevitably includes the presence of suffering, an essential part of existence. The Buddha clearly pointed this out in his most fundamental teaching, known as the First Noble Truth. The truth of suffering. Suffering is not just the obvious physical pain that we can easily identify, but also the deep mental hardships, the worries, attachments, and constraints that weary and unbalance our hearts. Suffering is the feeling of anxiety, fear, loneliness, abandonment, the unavoidable losses in life such as separation from loved ones, aging, illness, or even disappointments and resentments that cannot be openly expressed. The Buddha categorized suffering into four main types, known as the four kinds of suffering. Suffering of suffering, dukkha. This is the clear and tangible pain felt in the body, such as illness, injury, physical pain, accidents, or death. Everyone experiences this at least once in life. Suffering of change, dukkha, the pain arising from change, from losing what we cherish or value. For example, separation, divorce, loss of loved ones, the fading of beauty, the weakening of the body over time, or broken relationships. This kind of suffering is very common in modern life, where everything is constantly changing. Suffering of conditioned states, dukkha, suffering due to the impermanent nature of all phenomena. Nothing remains stable forever, even if we wish to hold on to happiness, success, or pleasant moments. All eventually pass, and this creates suffering when we do not accept reality. Suffering of suffering in the mind, dukkha, the deepest mental suffering, including anxiety, grief, restlessness, and lack of peace in the heart. It may be the feeling of helplessness in the face of unchangeable circumstances. Self-doubt, inner conflicts, or emptiness in life. The First Noble Truth is not just a statement. It is an invitation to stop and look directly at reality without avoidance. Recognizing suffering is the beginning of healing and liberation. When we no longer deny suffering but accept it as an inseparable part of life, we can start the path of change and inner healing. In today's European society, many adults, especially those aged 45 and above, face deep psychological crises, loneliness in old age, health losses, family separations, feelings of uselessness, or a loss of direction in life. Social pressures, rapid technological and cultural changes sometimes make people feel abandoned and lost. The Four Noble Truths teach us that suffering is not evil or a personal failure. It is a universal truth, a shared experience of all beings, in all times and places. Accepting suffering is not surrendering to fate but awakening to see reality clearly. Not being deceived by false illusions. In that acceptance, we see the light of liberation. We are no longer bound by suffering but begin to let go of the invisible chains within the mind. Those who have endured great life changes understand that suffering can be the gateway to profound transformation, awakening, and inner healing. When fear of suffering fades, we can move forward with a peaceful heart and clear wisdom. Let us now explore deeper into the origin of suffering, so that we can find ways to untie the shackles of the heart and start the true healing journey. Now that we have understood suffering as an unavoidable part of life, the next natural question arises: why do we suffer? Is suffering our fate? Is it because the world is inherently flawed, or because of others? The Buddha offered a profound answer. The root of suffering does not lie outside of us, but within our own minds. This is the essence of the second noble truth, the truth of the origin of suffering. In Pali, it is called Samudaya, meaning arising or origin. The Buddha taught that the main cause of suffering is craving, a deep-seated thirst, attachment, and desire in every human being. Craving is not just romantic love. It is the constant hunger to have, to hold, to never lose, to rush toward what we desire. We suffer not just because we lose loved ones, but because we want them to stay forever. We suffer not just because we age, but because we want to stay young. We suffer not just because people change, but because we don't want them to. It is the clinging to what cannot be held that torments us. It is the resistance to the impermanence of life that exhausts us. And the more we crave, the more we are haunted by fear and loss. The Buddha identified three forms of craving: sensual craving, kamatana, desire for pleasure; material wealth, beauty, fame, the things we believe will make us happy; craving for becoming, bhavatana, the desire to exist, to be recognized, to become someone; craving for non-becoming, vibhavatana, the desire to not exist, to escape current circumstances, to disappear, sometimes even to escape oneself. These desires are not evil or shameful. They are part of human instinct. But when we allow them to control us, they become invisible chains. We chase an image of happiness created by the mind, and forget the present moment is slipping away. Those who have lived long lives, who have loved, lost, succeeded, and failed often know the emptiness that follows the fulfillment of desire. A new house, a new title, a new relationship all eventually fade. And then a new form of suffering arises: the fear of losing what has just been gained. Understanding the second noble truth means we stop blaming life, others, or fate. We begin to turn inward, to observe the workings of our own minds. We realize that suffering is the result of an inner process, fueled by illusion, attachment, and expectations out of sync with reality. From this understanding, we begin to experience freedom. Freedom from chasing what doesn't last. Freedom from being bound by endless craving. And thus, we take our first steps on the path of true healing, the path of letting go rather than holding on, of awakening rather than escaping. When we understand the cause of suffering, we also unlock the door to its end. Because if suffering has a cause, then its cessation is also possible. That is the promise of the third noble truth, the truth of the cessation of suffering. If suffering has a cause, then suffering can also have an end. This is one of the most hopeful and liberating statements in all of the Buddha's teachings. The third noble truth, the truth of the cessation of suffering, shows us that the end of suffering is not a distant dream, but a real, achievable possibility. Not after death, not in a distant paradise, but here and now, in this very moment, with a mind free from attachment and ignorance. The cessation of suffering does not mean becoming empty or emotionless. On the contrary, It is a state in which the mind is completely at peace. No longer pulled by greed, hatred, or delusion, no longer chasing or resisting anything. It is like a still lake after a storm. Like a person sitting in deep silence, not because they have everything, but because they have seen clearly that there is nothing left to hold on to. A profound freedom not given by the world, but arising from within. The Buddha called this state nibbana, or nirvana. It is not a place, but the extinguishing of the fire of suffering. It is not the annihilation of the self, but the end of what causes the self to suffer: craving, attachment, and the illusion of ego. To touch nirvana even for a moment is to realize that suffering is not the essence of life, but only a cloud that temporarily hides the sky of peace. When the clouds pass, the sky remains open, clear, and still. This does not mean we must abandon the world, live in caves, or renounce everything. The end of suffering does not require us to escape life, it invites us to live fully. But without attachment, we can still love, work, create, but from a place of inner stillness, no longer driven by craving or fear. Many in the West, after facing life's great upheavals, divorce, illness, loss, turn to healing practices. They try meditation, yoga, therapy, and while these often bring relief, some still feel a subtle emptiness. The third noble truth points to something deeper, not just soothing the pain, but understanding its roots and allowing it to dissolve. Not just feeling better, but awakening to the realization that, in essence, we are untouched by the nature of impermanent things. When we truly understand that suffering can end, we are no longer victims not of circumstances, emotions, or thoughts. We become witnesses, awakened ones, and finally liberated beings. From this place, the question shifts from, how can I stop suffering, to, what am I willing to let go of, to rediscover the freedom already present in my heart? We have walked through the first three truths. Life contains suffering. Suffering has a cause, and suffering can end. But one big question remains. How do we truly free ourselves from suffering? The Buddha did not leave this question unanswered. He pointed out a clear path known as the Noble Eightfold Path, a spiritual map guiding us step by step from confusion to clarity, from suffering to liberation. The fourth noble truth is not just a promise, it is a way of life, a path of wisdom, ethics, and meditation. It is not meant to be believed blindly, but to be experienced, practiced, and realized by oneself. The Eightfold Path has 8 elements, grouped into 3 key areas. 1. Ethical conduct. 2. Mental discipline. 3. Wisdom. Let's walk through them like stepping stones across a river, leading us to the other shore of awakening. 1. Right view. This is the starting point, seeing reality clearly. Understanding that life is impermanent, suffering has causes, and liberation is possible. We stop reacting from ego and begin to see with wisdom's eye. 2. Right intention. It's about renouncing desire, ill will, and cruelty. We cultivate loving intentions, compassion, and the willingness to let go. When our thoughts are pure, our actions and words naturally follow. 3. Right speech. Words can heal or hurt. Right speech means speaking truthfully, kindly, without gossip or malice. When speech is guided by mindfulness, we become messengers of peace. 4. Right action. Our physical actions must align with compassion. No killing, stealing, or sexual misconduct. Ethical behavior is the soil in which true peace can grow. 5. Right livelihood. How we earn a living reflects our inner values. We avoid professions that harm others, such as selling weapons, drugs, alcohol, or deceit. Right livelihood nourishes both body and soul. 6. Right effort. This is not about stress or force, but mindful energy, letting go of unwholesome states, cultivating wholesome ones, staying awake and present. This is the gentle but steady energy of practice. 7. Right mindfulness. The heart of meditation, being fully present in each moment, aware of body, feelings, mind, and phenomena without judgment. Mindfulness is the light that dispels the darkness of ignorance. 8. Right concentration, Chan Din. A deeply still and focused mind, undisturbed by distractions. When the mind is anchored in breath and awareness, we reach meditative absorption where suffering fades and peace deepens. This path is not a quick fix. It is a transformational journey, taught by the Buddha over 45 years, and practiced by countless beings through centuries. The Noble Path does not ask us to abandon our faith or worldly life. It simply invites us to come home to ourselves, to befriend our mind, and to walk the path one gentle step at a time, with trust and kindness. And then, we don't have to wait for another life. We can begin healing right here, right now, in this very life. Perhaps the most beautiful thing in the Buddha's teaching is this. He didn't ask us to believe. He simply invited us to look, to see, and to walk the path for ourselves. The Four Noble Truths are not a belief system. They're a spiritual map drawn from wisdom, experience, and boundless compassion. A map that doesn't demand worship, but invites practice. Suffering is real, but healing is just as real. It doesn't come from outside. It doesn't come from trying to control every situation or escaping our past. It comes when we bravely turn inward, accept truth, release what no longer serves us, and live mindfully one moment at a time. Each step on the Noble Eightfold Path is a step back home. Back to the stillness within us, a stillness covered over by confusion, fear, and craving. This path doesn't promise we'll never feel sad again, but it does promise this. We won't be afraid of sadness anymore. We learn to sit with ourselves, no longer needing to hide in work, social media, or noise. We sit in silence and listen to the quiet voice of our true nature. And then, something beautiful happens. Suffering dissolves, not because we forced it away, but because we understood it, accepted it, and walked through it with the light of wisdom. The path of healing the Buddha revealed is for everyone. It makes no distinctions between nationality, religion, age, or past. Whether you're in Europe or Asia, whether your life has been joyful or broken, if there's even a small flame of awakening in your heart, the path is always there, waiting for you. You don't have to become a Buddhist to walk this path. You only need to become a kind friend to yourself. Step by step, breath by breath, returning to awareness again and again. There's no rush, no need for perfection. Just begin, and stay with yourself like someone returning home. After years of wandering, the deepest healing does not come from erasing the past. It comes from the ability to embrace it with understanding and compassion. The Four Noble Truths teach us this not through poetic words, but through the living experience of practice. And one day, you will smile, not because life has become perfect, but because you found peace in its imperfections.